Yes. My cats are an integral part of my writing. They sit on my keyboard. They are known to lay on top of the computer if it even gets anywhere near closing, or pause on keypads, just completely there. Sooty tends to linger around my feet. Snowy demands the computer space. Cornwall. It is a land apart. Have you ever gone to a place where you feel things in the landscape? Take for here, for example, if you go out into the desert and you're there among the dunes, say you go down to Liwa where the dunes start getting really serious, and there's an emptiness that fills you. That's what the desert is for me. There's a richness to it and so forth. When I get to Cornwall, I just look around at this rugged, ancient landscape and I feel things. I see stories in the landscape. And I fell in love with it the first time I went there, and that wasn't until 1989, just after I arrived to the UK, and my now husband took me down there to meet his parents. And they have had, may they both rest in peace, this wonderful house set into the hillside, overlooking the river and down out to Falmouth Bay. And it was a breathtaking weekend in June, and it was just glorious. And I fell in love with the place. And if I hadn't fallen in love with Cornwall, I don't think my husband and I would be together now. I think anytime you open a book, there are questions raised on page 1. If there aren't, then you don't read on. So for me, I think it probably harks back to what I read in my growing years. I liked a bit of romantic suspense, probably heavier on the suspense than the romance, but for me, as who I am and what I'm about, I do like a love story as well, intertwined with that whole thing. I'm very much one about, if not a happy ending, then a hopeful ending. So there has to be secrets, there has to be a mystery. What's going to make me turn the pages? Because ultimately I write books that I like to read, and I like solving a puzzle. I like, getting behind the walls of a property and finding out what's there, finding a lost treasure, all sorts of things. I love a little bit of history thrown in, and with that you kind of find secrets are all a part of it, and each of us has things we don't want to reveal, so it kind of touches upon that side of ourselves. Ooh, it's one of those things that, when people say, what's your favourite book? And I just kind of sink at that, because it depends on the day, it depends on the moment. But thinking of my formative years, my growing up years, because I think that's where we really get formed as a reader and as a writer to a certain extent. And as an adult writer, it's very rare that I'll read a book twice, but you think of the years growing up where you read a book and you read it again and you read it again, or even going back earlier, the ones that you requested your parents to read again and again and again. I look back to those and I think they were more action adventure stories. I mean, I absolutely adored Huckleberry Finn. It's one of my all-time favourites. Another one was Johnny Tremaine, which is a wonderful story of revolutionary Boston. Again, there was another one, Constance, which was about the early Pilgrim landing in Massachusetts. Again, historically based, always intrigued me. And then from there, I kind of jumped and moved on to the Georgette Heyers, the Regency romances. And again, that continued, and Mary Stuart and her romantic suspenses. And then when I got to university, I then switched to more classic. I mean, I love Jane Austen, and going on from there. So those were the kind of formative books, if you will, that I read, along with romances and all sorts of other things along the way. And now, I suppose my guilty pleasure is still historical fiction. When I'm down, when I need to be lifted, I will pick up an Elizabeth Chadwick or something, and I just want to be immersed into another time and place. Ones that I fancy. I have to be able to fall in love with my heroes, because if I don't love them, how can I expect my heroine to love them? How can I expect my reader to love them? So the male characters I have tend to be men that I like as individuals, whether they are actually the hero of the story or the secondary characters. For example, probably the most beloved character in all my books is from the first book, The Cornish House, is Old Tom. He is an old man, he is a mentor, and he is divine. I absolutely adore him in every way, and I would, every time I ask readers, who's your favourite character, they all say Old Tom. So for me, men have been very important in my life, encouraging and everything else. And I suppose it probably comes into the fact that I have a wonderful husband, and I believe that's possible for everybody if there's an equal relationship. So I like to create well-rounded, not overly self-focused men, although right now I'm trying to write a very broken hero. And that's hard for me because most of my heroes, although slightly broken, are not truly, they haven't really got a terrible past.